6 o'clock, and I'd like to call the Long Lake Township Board meeting to order. It's January 13th, 2015. Would you please join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I will take the roll call. Carol is not here this evening. Wagner.
Here.
Garvin.
Here.
Linnerson.
Here.
Schaub is absent and excused. Maney.
Here.
Hoffman is absent and excused. Rosa is here. We have 5 members, a quorum of the board. I believe we have a student here tonight. In what class are you from?
Traverse City West, the civics, Mr. Raymond Civics class.
Okay, welcome to our class. Welcome to our meeting tonight. It may be a
Big
class for you.
You got me a test after the
Item 4 is public comment. Would anyone like to speak at this time? Peter.
Thank you. I've got one public comment here regarding the minutes for December's meeting. And then later on in the other public comment, I'd like to comment on the road maintenance agreement. Both of these comments are not as the liaison for the Long Lake Association. They're my private comments, okay? So, in the December 9th minutes, let's see what this is. Yeah, it says, Peter Zernhout commented on the Consumers Energy Franchise Ordinance and the updated FOIA policy. And I guess what I would ask is that it state what at least in a summary form, the point I was trying to make. And as it related to the Consumers Energy Franchise Ordinance was my concern that the ordinance didn't provide for payment of a fee to the township. And in the FOIA policy, the information in the packet referred to as a reestablished FOIA policy, and that was my concern. Was I was advised when I raised that issue that it was really an updated FOIA policy, not a reestablished. Reestablished had the sense that it had ceased to exist and a new one was being formed. So that was my only comments on the minutes. I would ask maybe that the minutes be removed from the consent calendar and that this aspect of my comments be added to those.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other public comment at this time? If not, we will move on to the consent calendar, and we have the Township Board minutes of December 9th, 2014 regular meeting, Treasurer's report dated 11/30/14, Zoning Department report, Grand Traverse County Road Commission report, Grand Traverse Fire Department report, Grand Traverse County Sheriff's Department report, Planner's report, Assessor's quarterly report, and correspondence. Does anyone wish to have an item removed, or what are your thoughts about the December 9th Township Board minutes?
Do we have to remove it to amend it, or can we just say to accept the consent agenda with the amendments made to the December 9th meeting?
If we get the wording right, I suppose we could do that instead, because the discussion, he has told us what he would like changed. If the board wishes, we can approve with. Actually, the consent calendar means we have to take it off, because we're not changing anything when we move the consent calendar. So I guess we would remove that, I'm sorry, and put it down under new business to add on to the minutes. Is that the
All right,
wishes?
I'll make a motion to accept the consent calendar, or do I need to make a motion to remove that first?
You can do it all in one.
Okay, and removing the Township Board minutes of December 9th and moving it to F under new business.
Is there support for that?
Support.
Moved and supported. Any further discussion? Motion is carried, and we will add that to item F under new business, Township Board minutes. Okay, item 6 is approval or amendment to the agenda. We have one agenda item to add, and I would also like to just clarify under 11E that it is emergency services agreement fee schedule. It isn't really the agreement itself, it's the fee schedule that we're going to be discussing. So I wanted a clarification of that. So there's 2 items that have made, that we are changing at that point. Is there someone that would like to make a motion to approve the agenda with those 2 amendments?
So
Madam
moved.
Chairman, also
Oh,
move.
sorry.
Okay,
Go ahead, John.
Lennerson,
Support.
supported by me. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion is carried. Item 7 is conflict of interest. Is there anything on the agenda that would be a conflict of interest to any board member? If not, we will move on to item 8 is public comment again. Peter?
Yes, Madam Supervisor, I'd like to comment on this maintenance agreement and easement form.
Okay.
And just some things I think I would suggest that the board consider. Under paragraph 1 of that agreement, it says this agreement refers only to the portion of the Timbers Trail owned by Long Lake Township as described and illustrated in Exhibit 2. And I may be wrong about this because I haven't been as privy to this or not, but that one, the new section up there on the very north end, right, the little 66-foot wide stretch next to, right immediately south of North Long Lake Road and west of the existing trail.
You don't mean South Long Lake Road. You mean North.
North Long Lake Road. Did I say south? I meant
Yeah,
north.
you did.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know whether the township owns that right now, or I know they're going to acquire own an interest in that at some point in time. But since that's part of this Exhibit 2, the map, that may not be correct the way it's written right now, because you don't own it right now. And I think you want that whole thing, including that new 66-foot strip next to the existing trail, to be included in this agreement.
Yeah, and we're going to be discussing that tonight
Okay.
too, yes.
So that was the one thing that I just thought I'd just bring. It says the township, or then paragraph 2, the township will determine expenses for maintenance annually. I assume this will be by a resolution of the township board. Is that what's meant by that?
Okay, we'll discuss that.
Okay. And then under 4, says that if the township elects to pave or reconstruct the road, the township will hold a meeting to determine cost sharing, if any. But it doesn't say who is going to have the final say on this cost. It doesn't say whether the township board is going to have the final say. I assume what you're talking about is a meeting, let the people who are using the easement have input into the discussion, but the township board would have the final say on what that amount. So I would just suggest that. Under paragraph 5, on the 1, 2, 3, 4th line down, it says the parcels which are owned by the users. I would suggest that after users, you put in their successors and assigns, because the users, as is written right now, is only the people who are the current owners. It doesn't refer to successors and assigns, and I'm sure you want to make sure that if somebody conveys their interest in one of these parcels, that their purchaser or assignee are subject to this same agreement as a condition of the sale.
Wouldn't they then be a user? If they purchase the property, wouldn't they then be a
Well,
user?
it would be, except
Yes.
the way the user is defined is the current owner, okay?
Well, could
It
you
does
say
say-
by all users?
Well, yeah, I would say, the normal terminology is to put the users includes the current owners, the successors, and assigns. You put that in there is what I would suggest. And then, under paragraph 8, payment and collection, there's no, the only collection system that's provided for in the agreement is to bring suit. Well, you don't want to bring suit every time somebody's late on a payment. I mean, I think that's going to be just a practical way to approach this. You know, you may want to say, and it's your own decision, but you may want to say, oh, well, we'll wait till they miss 2 payments or something like that. But what you want to do is you want to have a lien. You want to have the right to place a lien on that property of anybody that's late by X number of days that you set, so that if they sell it, you are going to get your money, okay? Because otherwise, once they sell it, the new buyer, without a lien being placed on it, which gives notice to the public of the township's interest in getting receipt of payment for these fees, you're going to be out of luck once they sell it. So that here's the language I suggested. Township shall have the right to place a lien on land of user who fails to timely pay as is authorized for, in the nature of a lien that is authorized for a mortgage of said lands. Okay, in other words, you would place a lien on the property in the Register of Deeds office, just like you would record a mortgage. And so that way it protects you so you don't lose your money.
Okay.
So those are some comments I had on it, so.
Very good.
What
Thank
they
you.
were. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we are, as far as special reports, Sunny?
Good evening.
Hello.
As everyone's aware, we have 4 new county commissioners. Commissioner Max Bauer is the new board chairman. Commissioner Lathrop is the vice chairman. I chair public health and safety. Commissioner Kropa will chair resource management and administration. It was decided at our organizational meeting on January 2nd, when everyone was sworn in by Judge Stanton, that we will continue at this time with the 4-meeting committee situation that we have. Some of the new commissioners felt they were concerned that whether they would be able to get up to speed if we start changing things around. I personally believe they would have more opportunity to review the information if the board meets, because currently we meet on Wednesday night. If we say we want to discuss something next week and board packets have to go out on Friday morning, staff or no one else have much opportunity to put anything together for them. I think that's the biggest reason we end up with a lot of meetings with material sitting on our desk when the meeting's called to order that we haven't seen previously. But the prosecuting attorney has advised us that we can at any time change our meeting schedule to go to a 2-meeting schedule like I was proposing. It can be done at any time. We just simply have to republish our meeting dates. So, you know, with that, we're going to move forward. I think there is support to go to a different structure, but they just, you know, want to get their feet wet first. So that's fine. That's perfectly fine. You may have seen in the ticker, I believe this morning, we have signed 9 out of our 11 union contracts. We signed both contracts with the non-union groups, the non-union hourly and non-union salary personnel. So we truly have only 2 contracts left to sign, one of them being the sheriff's road deputies, and the other being Sheriff's Department command staff. The sergeants have approved a contract which we will sign tomorrow night. But the road deputies and the command staff are still, at this point, going to mediation. Mediation scheduled for, I believe it's the 23rd. As you probably remember or may remember, the Sheriff's Department are eligible to do what's called 312 binding arbitration. They can take us to that in this binding arbitration. The arbitrator will say, nope, you can pay them this, or you don't pay them that, you know. And I believe the contract that we have is probably the closest thing to a master contract that Grand Traverse County has ever seen in the history of the organization. Everyone is getting the same raises. Everyone is getting the same health insurance policies and the same retirement benefits. So, you know, we are closer to a master contract than we've ever been. We still have little glitches here and there in some of the contracts about personal days and how many holidays, vacation days you get. You know, and unfortunately, you know, I've yelled for a long time now about a master contract. The problem is you still have these folks that can't forget that in 1968, they gave away an extra vacation day to have an extra 2% in their retirement or something, you know. So in order to get to the point that we get a master contract, somebody has to forget a little bit about some of the stuff that's been in the past, and we are getting very, very close. We've got, most all of the wording is now uniform, and like I say, the wages, the raises that are getting given in the next 2 years are in the same range, so that's a good thing. We had about a 2.5-hour presentation last Wednesday night from MERS, the Municipal Employees Retirement Service. As everyone knows, we have a significant unfunded liability for our defined benefit program, not unlike most of the other counties and governmental entities in the county or in the state, and most of them throughout the country. Most organizations, ours included, made the decision a long time ago to get rid of defined benefit programs because you could see the legacy cost was going to be too high, and as people continue to live longer and you give cost of living raises and those kind of things, that unfunded liability that they didn't pay anything toward gets larger. You know, when we looked at, you know, and there's, you know, part of it I guess is you know, our own fault. You know, when we did some early outs back in the early 90s and early 2000s, 2001, 2003, 2007. You know, we gave multipliers on those. The problem is, by MERS definition, those multipliers went back not only on their current wages, but all of the wages since they started. So some of these people that, you know, had worked 20 years, that 2.5% multiplier went back on those wages from, you know, 20 years ago when they started working for the county. That's a key piece of why our unfunded liability is as high as it is. MERS, in their wisdom, I guess, also decided when we closed our defined benefit programs, they put us on an accelerated amortization schedule. You know, at the time that we closed those programs in 2001, 2003, it was set that we were supposed to pay back or pay the amount over a 30-year period. Well, when we started closing the programs, they accelerated the amortization schedule. So for every year since that point, instead of going down 1 year, it's went down 2 years. So we're now at a point where the debt that would normally be spread over 25 years is down to 12 years. And that's why you're seeing about $1.5 million a year increase in the premium that we have to make to MERS. One of the glitches we had, one of the discussions we had, we have two organizations that still currently have defined benefit programs for new hires. They're both connected to the circuit court. We negotiated with the circuit court employees to eliminate that for new hires. MERS would not allow us to do it because we're not 55% funded in those two organizations, and we're not 50% funded as the county as a whole. So, but we had discussion. They're willing to, you know, reopen that discussion and possibly allow us to make that change in the future. You know, we have 500 employees, and as of right now, we have 96 active employees that are still on defined benefits. Everyone else is on a defined contribution system. So, you know, because of the fact that we only have 96 people paying into the defined benefit program, they've bumped our premiums pretty high. You know, and it will continue to go up every year for the next 13 years, and then it will start to drop off. You know, and it drops off significantly after that point. The discussion that's been had I've talked about it a little bit here, is the possibility of doing pension bonds to finance that debt. If you were to do a pension bond, you would sell bonds for that $44 million that we have in a liability and spread that over 20 years. The payment would be the same. Now, you would have, over and above that payment, you would still have your actual cost for this year. And also, MERS uses an assessment that they're going to return 8% on their money. So if they don't make 8%, you'd have that additional premium besides. But at least you wouldn't be seeing $1.5 million, $2 million. In the next 5 years, we're going to increase our premium by about $3.8 million that we have to pay to MERS to keep our system just at the level that it is right now, not paying anything off, just to keep us at the same point we are now. So that's a significant issue. So more discussion to come. It was an excellent presentation. We had 2 people from Lansing, MERS were here, and the regional supervisor for the MERS organization was here. You know, MERS is a big company. They represent, I think it's 58 of the 63 counties in Michigan. So, you know, it's a big operation, and it's a pool. And we are a member organization in that pool, and we aren't the only community that has this problem. You know, I remember a few years ago when it was still Great Lakes Mental Health at that time, you know, realized that they had such a large unfunded liability. And in December that year, they paid a $2 million additional premium to MERS. And the following year, they did not drop off even 1% of what their liability was. They still had the liability didn't go down much, even though they sent them an extra $2 million. So retirement benefits for all organizations, particularly defined benefits, where an employee sets their benefit is paid based on what their final 60 months of compensation was. You know, and if that be 70% or whatever, you know, you take a 2.5 multiplier. If the guy worked 25 years, you know, you're looking at about a 60% of what he was getting paid the last day that he worked is what he's going to draw for the next how many years, you know. And one of the factors that enters in is the average life expectancy of people. You know, people are now expected to live longer. So just the idea that, you know, you were expecting to pay this person, you know, $40,000 a year, but now instead of paying it until he reaches age 68, you're going to reach it until he pays age 73, you know, that adds a bunch of liability to the county also. So it's a very complicated issue. I think it was very good for the new commissioners to have the presentation. It's part of that learning curve, and we're going to have some of that in the next 6 months, I'm sure. Anyone have any questions? Or?
Questions?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
What's your sense of the new commissioners as to a bond issue?
I have not had that discussion with any of them at this point. You know, that will be a presentation that I'm sure we will see in the next little while.
Bond issue for what? I'm just curious.
Sorry?
MERS for the retirement.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, bond issue to pay the pension liability.
Thanks, Sunny. Item B is Station 10 report. Captain John gave us a written report. We had 31 runs in December, 24 medical, 6 fire, and 1 PIA. Have no pending business, so we will move on to our new business, and we are very fortunate to have Matt McDonough here this evening, and he's going to talk about Timbers Recreation Area a little bit, and then we're also going to get into the road maintenance agreement.
Yeah, I mean, give you those are all your copies of your deeds.
Oh.
For all the timbers and the
Okay, thank you.
caretaker's residence and everything. So,
Okay.
on the notes here. Yeah, I just got 4 things to talk to you about. One is use. I don't know if anybody has been out there to use it, but I have been, and there's a lot of use. There was a Sunday just a couple of weeks ago where I went out there with my family, and there were 8 other automobiles in the parking area.
Wow.
And it was kind of a crummy day. It wasn't like a great kind of get outside day, but apparently other folks wanted to as well.
Right.
So,
That's
and I'm hearing good things. So, just so you know.
It's being used.
It is being used. We did have, it was just before the holidays when it had warmed up and the ground was still pretty damp. A neighbor on Timbers Trail further down was having some big work done, and a contractor had parked, had sort of staged some of their equipment there, and it had tore up the parking area pretty bad. I reached out to the landowner and their contractor, and they were very apologetic. It was a subcontractor of the contractor. But they, as soon, it had froze up over that weekend, then the next Monday or Tuesday it had thawed, and they went out and graded it a little bit. There is gonna need to be a little bit more done, I think, come spring. And there's an area in between the parking area and where there was an old, actually I think it's an old like railroad grade, like a narrow gauge berm. It's an old remnant of it. Used to be a trail there. But there was a low area in between the parking area and that little berm that is pretty wet, I noticed in this past fall, and so we're gonna have more fill brought in for that area so that people aren't having to walk from a dry parking area into a wet area before they get onto dry land. So, so that's that. We've had one of our stewardship staff out there. We're still in the process of cleaning out some of the, the barn and a couple of buildings, and that's gonna carry over into spring. We'll probably get one more dumpster out there. There's a lot of scrap plywood that had been used when they had boarded up all the different buildings. It was the scraps of that are still in the basement of the barn. So we made a commitment to give you guys the property clean, and it's not clean yet. So it's taking a little bit longer than we expected. So intersection work is coming along well. For the Ryan Cox had done the planning. But now Scott Joswiak is going to actually put everything out for bid. I guess he's been doing some other work for the township, and he's going to be putting some other things out for bid. All of the road commissions approved everything. We're just waiting on one landowner for some consent, because there is going to be a bit of a passing lane and some other road commission required grading within or just outside of the existing easement. And we're just waiting to hear back from one landowner on willingness, but we expect that we'll get it.
But that's a little different than what we had expected the first go-around, right? As far as from the road commission, I mean, they're expecting a little bit more hill cutting down, or?
Oh, yeah, there's quite a, this is
quite a
gonna
bit
be a little bit different than what,
different than
yeah, I'm
what
sorry,
we
that's a whole nother topic. The road commission came back and said that they actually wanted, we weren't hitting the minimum sight distance that we needed to the west of the intersection, and that they wanted to see North Long Lake Road brought down a bit. I've got the plans. These are these aren't the final plans, but they were the most recent I had. I don't have the expertise to read
That's
these.
okay, but it is gonna be different than
But
what
it
we
is
had
gonna be different.
expected
It's
the
not
first.
just moving Timbers Trail, but it's also gonna be lower North Long Lake Road a little bit. So, I talked to Karen a little bit about this. Do we try to get a preliminary estimate, then come back and talk, or do we go ahead and put it out for bid and then talk? The Conservancy's still committed to doing the reroute of Timbers Trail, to make that safer and, work with the Norrises. And they're still willing to work with us. But, the township was gonna be working with some different public funding, I guess, on the North Long Lake Road portion. But it's gonna be expected that's gonna be more than originally contemplated. So we'll know more once we put it out for bid and actually get numbers back. Which hopefully will happen in the next, we're hoping to get it out for bid in about 2 weeks. So.
And all this stuff we've done in the spring, probably after
Spring,
everything's
fall,
up.
or spring or summer, yeah.
Okay.
Just back to the property, the management plan, I've talked with Karen quite a bit. We're going back and forth. Do we want a contract to get that management plan done by an outside source, or is it something that Leslie and I could do through Leslie, maybe facilitating some public meetings for the public input part, and then the Conservancy writing it? Just trying to make sure we get it done in the most cost-efficient, cost-effective manner and done well. So, and that's set for late spring, early summer. And that'll really help guide, what happens out there, in the future. Then the road maintenance agreement. I took notes as Peter was giving his comments, and I think he's actually got some good points and some good things. What I'll do is, if it's okay with you, I'll incorporate those into a draft that are highlighting them and then send them to your attorney for their comments.
We were trying to keep this as simple as possible, but I do understand some of your concerns. When we talked, it seemed like we talked about doing a lien at one time, and there was some discussion about that, and I'm not remembering what that was, if they didn't pay their bill and so on. Why didn't we go that route? It seemed like there was a reason, but we can certainly double check on that.
Yeah, I don't recall.
Yeah, I don't either right now, but we did talk about how do we collect it if they
Right,
don't
right.
pay, or if it changes hands.
I'd like to get this out as soon as possible, only because I want to try to compel the folks to sign this so that they'll then get the egress easements, and we can move
Yes.
forward and
Yes,
know who's on board.
right,
So-
exactly.
If I'd be willing to help work with Matt, my comments, if that will help you out, Matt.
Okay, I think I've got most of them,
Okay.
if not all of them, but I appreciate it.
Okay.
Peter.
Are there any questions from the board regarding the maintenance agreement, other than what Peter brought up, or are there any concerns that you have? Like Matt said, we're trying to get this done and out because we've been working on it for a while, and then it got kind of set aside, and now we're back to it. So I think the snow removal seems to be going okay. I've not had any
I
complaints
haven't
from
heard
any of the owners.
complaints either, so.
I just got one bill from Matt the other day, so we'll accumulate that and
Okay.
go forward.
Well, on the, can't we add that to the taxes of that property if
Well-
you're not paying your,
I
don't think so.
don't think so, but we'll check into that.
yeah,
But the
But
lien.
there was a
We do
reason.
have, in our subdivision, that's what we have, the writing is if you don't pay your maintenance bills on the road.
Okay.
With our road, a lien will be placed on your home. We haven't obviously had to do that at this point, but that was something that's.
I don't know if we talked about that. I remember talking about the special assessment district and
Right.
the township electing not to go that route.
Right.
But I don't know if
Maybe.
we had the conversation about the lien.
Okay, well, we'll definitely look into that.
We use that technique out at Long Lake Association all the
Yes.
time, yeah. Or Long Lake Peninsula.
Long Lake Peninsula, but
Right.
you're organized somehow differently
It's
too.
a summer resort owners
Yes,
corporation, right?
yes. So there may be a reason why we can or cannot, but we will certainly look into that.
So do we have to make a motion on this or something? I
Well-
mean, can we make a motion with the, that you would have authority to sign with these?
Depends on how comfortable you would feel with that. I certainly can bring it back to the board.
The next time we have
Well,
a
but then
meeting.
you've got a whole
Right.
other month before you,
Unless we have a
special
special meeting
meeting.
that we
Yeah.
can bring it back to, and maybe we
That's
can
true.
work on that.
Yeah,
I
that's
would like
true.
the support of the township board, and I'd like them to be able to read it exactly how it's going to go out.
Yeah.
But
That's true. You could do it at a special.
Okay.
we'll get it.
Lunch.
We'll get it. We're getting closer.
Yeah, we are. And there's just a little bit of survey work, that triangle that is on Pathway Homes, that just needs to be staked and the landowner's final consent to it. That's gonna happen tomorrow at 2:00.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay.
he's been great, he's,
Okay.
just,
Okay,
I know that, and that's because the existing road actually cuts that corner.
yes, it does.
So, but he said, no, that's fine, we talked about that a year or so ago, but he
Right.
just wants to be out, when we're staking it, so.
And the easement with the Norrises, do we have that buttoned down, or are we waiting for the
I'm still waiting for the
description?
surveyor to give us, he's working, because he's working on both of this. I told him that this was a higher priority because of tonight's meeting, and that the other easement, which is actually gonna be exactly like what the north half looks, it's just that it's gonna end at Gary Bauer's southern boundary there.
Okay.
But it's the same legal description, it just ends there, and it benefits everybody here. Because that was kind of what was, we would get from Orley and Carroll, that little easement there, if we would grant these folks here an easement along the existing roadway.
The legal easement to use,
Right.
is what you're saying.
So short answer is, I'm working on it,
Sure.
Orly knows I'm working on it,
Sure,
so.
okay. So if we can button up those, few things and
Yeah.
get this.
That can all be done outside of this,
Right,
but,
okay. As long as everybody's on the same page, so I
Yeah.
guess we'll, if we want to work with that, work with Jim on getting that wording
yep.
corrected and get it back to us, that'd be great.
When's your
Any
next
other-
meeting?
Any other questions regarding that? Okay, anything else we should know about timbers? I mean, everything, I know there is usage on it, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
And,
No,
We have-
we've got some meetings to go over, future signage.
right,
The Olson Foundation wants to meet with you to talk about, future needs.
Yep.
It's always nice when a foundation wants to meet with you about
Right.
your needs, so.
Right, that'll
But,
be great.
I think you and I are gonna be meeting,
Yeah.
in the next couple of weeks, so.
yeah, good.
Good.
Do you want to just call him and let him know when we'll be having another meeting, or?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll let you know if we're gonna have a special meeting for sure, and
Okay.
when that might be, because we could put that on the agenda,
That would
not
be
wait a
great.
month.
That'd be great.
That'd be good. Okay,
Thanks.
thanks, Matt,
Thank
for
you.
coming out and doing that.
Oh, sure.
Cool.
Okay, item B is Board of Review appointments. On the odd years is the time to do the 2-year appointment for Board of Review members. We have 2 members that have agreed to stay on, Jeff Whiting and Joan Hart. Ron Sanborn has been our alternate, and he is willing to stay on as the alternate. And we have 1 new member, Steve Steimel, who will be joining us for those 2 years, 2015 and 2016. So my recommendation for appointment is Jeff Whiting, Joan Hart, Ron Sanborn as alternate, and Steve Steimel as new member.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, motion.
I'm not gonna go through all the names.
Motion by Garvin,
Support.
support by Meany, to appoint the new Board of Review members, and they are sworn in as all the other commissions, and they will be starting in March for their first meetings, so
You got to vote on that?
we do have to vote on
Okay.
that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion is carried. And now we also have Planning Commission appointments. I'm looking at my calendar, and it's Bob Vershave and Joy Tobin are up for reappointment if they wish to do so. I talked to both of them. Their term is January 18, 2015 to January 18, 2018. It's for 3 years. So they are both willing to commit at this time. So my recommendation is to reappoint Bob Vershave and Joy Tobin.
Madam Chairman, I move that we take your recommendation and appoint these 2. Joy Tobin, and who was the other?
Bob Vershave.
Bob Rashay.
Linnerson, is there support for that?
Support.
Garvin? Moved and supported, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion is carried. Okay, item D is the fee schedule for zoning ordinance violations. The planning zoning department has been going through a process of looking at the violations fee schedule, and we've been pretty cut and dried at $500 no matter what it is. And we're thinking, maybe that's not quite fair for someone that put up a small shed, or someone that really absolutely did not know they needed a permit, and we're slapping them with a pretty hefty fine. So they went to the drawing board, came up with a schedule, and Trish and I met with them several times, and they've massaged it and changed it, and I think we have a pretty good schedule now. There's a certain amount of fee if you did not get a land use permit, and there's a fee or a violation fee if you got a land use permit but maybe didn't call for an inspection, and that's 2 different tiers. So I think it's worth a try, and we can certainly change it if we find out that this is not working. But we have to do something, and when it was pretty hefty and people would come in and say, give me a hard luck story and would you reduce it? And I just would rather have it set and be reasonable with it, and then I don't have to make some decisions. So what are your thoughts on this? Any comments? Any
I don't see no
Any
problem with it.
concerns?
You always can try it and see what happens, right? I
Sure.
mean, you know, if you change it, you can change it again,
Well,
right?
sure, it's
No.
just the
Yeah.
fee schedule, so.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we accept the fee schedule for zoning ordinance violations.
Manny,
Support?
support by Wagner. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. The item E is emergency services agreement, fee schedule. Again, we're not changing the emergency services ordinance that we passed back in 2005. We were approached by the fire chief at Rural Fire, trying to be in line with the other departments, and there's a lot of these that we probably will never use, but if it did happen to come up, we are in line with Metro and some of the other stations that charge fees. And I highlighted in there that if someone does not have insurance, we do not charge them for a fire or whatever, because that's just the way we operate. So the Rural Fire Board said that each one of us would take it back to our township boards and see if we can get approval for that. Like I say, there's a lot of things in here that we probably would never use, but they are covered in, just in case we would have to. Any questions?
So do we have to make a motion to?
Yes, yes.
accept it?
It actually is a resolution.
Yeah, resolution. number.
Resolution 01-1415-7. Did you
Should
have
be
it?
on the page.
Did you have that at the
Okay.
This is
top?
kind of handwritten on
Yeah.
there.
Okay. I'll make a motion to accept resolution number 01-14/15-7 for emergency service charges.
Manny, is there support?
Support?
Leonardson? Any further discussion? Okay, roll call on this one. Wagner,
Yes.
Garvin,
Yes.
Leonardson,
Yes.
Manny,
Yes.
and Rosa votes yes. Okay, motion is carried on that one. Item F is the one we added for the township board minutes. If we wish to add some language to clarify Mr. Zernhelt's concern. Let's see, under his comments, consumers, his concern was that no payment for fees, and the FOIA was not to reestablish but update the FOIA request, and those are the two things that he would like clarified. Does anyone have any concerns about doing that, or would like to make the change in the minutes that reflect that?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes with that reflected under number 4.
Okay, that was under public comment number 4.
Yes.
Maney, is there support of that?
Support.
Garvin, further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion is carried. Okay, let's see. I'm doing 2 jobs here tonight.
Well, doing a good job too.
We do not need a budget update tonight, or don't have one, but we don't need one at this point, so we're going to move on to payment of bills. And the first set of checks written are the check register report. And the amount of that is $141,205, and mine is cut off. Is yours cut off? I don't know what the
Yeah.
sense is.
Yeah, I just seen that, just
Uh-oh.
noticed that, I was gonna ask about that, sorry about that.
And I don't. Do
Half
you-
of a 2 for the first.
Half of
Yeah, I
the
do,
two.
I was gonna say, yeah.
You don't have those, do you?
Not the check register, I've got the vendor's approval.
Okay, well, I'd be glad to, fill in that sense, whatever that is, because I don't know what that is at the time, and
Yeah, I
Carol's
forgot
not
to
here
ask
to be
you
able to
last
look that up for us.
Yeah.
Well, if our treasurer was to add all,
No, we're not getting
In my
any
head.
treasurer at all.
Right now.
They're all
We'd
cut
be
off
here
on
a
mine.
little while.
Yeah, they're all cut
Yeah,
off on the second page.
and the second page too.
Dan will run those numbers up in his head.
Yeah.
We'll,
I would say I would make a motion to approve the check register report for an amount up to $141,205.29.
Good.
205.29, because it can't go beyond that, we know that's a 2, so up to.
Checks numbers 32626 through 32693.
I'll second that.
626, okay, motion by Wagner, seconded by Garvin, up to 141,205.29. And check number 626 to 32,693. Okay. Wagner and Garvin, so Wagner, this is a roll call. Wagner?
Yes.
Garvin?
Yes.
Leonardson?
yes.
Meany?
Yes.
And Rosa votes yes. Motion is carried. Okay, now on to the vendor approval.
You guys did the same thing.
We'll
on
have
that
to
one,
we'll have to tell Rhonda to turn that around or something, because it has cut that one off
then. Yeah,
as
just a little
well.
bit, yeah.
Okay, so we are at $14,860 and
And
0.69
cents.
up to 69 cents, I guess. Okay, who is,
It's gonna be 66, just so you know.
66, you got it figured
Up
out?
here.
Okay.
you do? It is 66?
Yes.
Oh, okay. 14,860, 66. Okay, is there a motion to approve the vendor's approval summary report?
We'll go ahead. Yeah.
Madam Chairman, I move to accept the vendor's approval or summary report for $14,860.66.
Okay, moved by Leonardson,
Support.
support by Garvin. Further discussion? Roll call will be Wagner.
Yes.
Garvin.
Yes.
Leonardson.
Yes.
Maney.
Yes.
Rosa votes yes. Motion is carried on that. And there is no other business. We are adjourned at, what, 6:48? Thank you all for coming.